Welcome back. Now, the finance bill is set to shape our lives for years to come. But what impact will changes to stamp duty and tax relief have on the property market?
Joining us this morning are our Property Watch team, Angela Keegan, who's the Managing Director of MyHome.ie, and Karl Deeter of Irish Mortgage Brokers. Good to see you both.
Morning.
Thanks for coming in. Angela, just explain to us stamp duty. The new levels that have been introduced.
Well, the levels that have been introduced now mean stamp duty applies to everybody, but at a much lower rate. It's a 1% stamp duty for any house priced under £1 million and 2% for a house priced over £1 million. And when I say for everybody, before the budget, first-time buyers were excluded from stamp duty. So now first-time buyers are brought into the net, albeit at a very low level.
Low level it might be, but it's tough enough getting onto the property market, Karl. So that it is a bit of a kick for first-time buyers.
It is. What it will do is free up a lot of the people who are not first-time buyers, who previous to that were paying much higher rates of stamp duty. Certainly for first-time buyers, it means that they're going to have to save up about an extra 1% on top of their deposit in order to make the transaction happen. But what is happening with some people who are entering into negotiations is that the seller will actually split that cost with you. We have seen examples of that, where someone went sale agreed at the end of 2010, and when they brought in this rule, they said, listen, because we had a deal on the table, we want you to meet us halfway. And that is happening, so it's not all bad news, and 1% is not going to be a deal breaker for people. Fortunately, if you're able to get a mortgage in this day and age, that 1% is an inconvenience more than a deal breaker. It's
fabulous news for people who were thinking of trading up, I imagine, because it was 7% under £1 million, was it?
That's it, exactly. And I suppose I speak to a lot of estate agents, and the early signs are very positive, because what we're finding is that a lot more people are looking for appraisals and thinking of selling their own homes. Particularly people who up to now and last year, the year before, would have just considered an extension. They're now looking at the cost of the extension, and they're looking at what they'll save on stamp duty, and they're considering trading up as an option. As I say, it's early days, and it'll be very interesting to see how it fares out over the next couple of months. But last year the market was very much fuelled by first-time buyers. We're seeing a lot of first-time buyers again this year, but we are beginning to see trader-uppers enter the market. And when I say that, we're seeing, you know, viewings of houses, you know, typical houses, maybe 4-bed, 5-bed homes. We're seeing a lot of people looking at those houses now, where they just wouldn't have attracted the interest last year. But again, it's early days. It'll be interesting to see over the next weeks and months whether they materialise into actually sold properties.
Well, that's a massive positive, Karl, that the stamp duty issue. Tax relief, though, is a minus.
It's a minus if you hold out. Actually, this is the last year that you'll be able to get the full tax relief at source. And the way that they work that out is, for every person buying a house, well say a couple, there's €10,000 per person which can be applied against the interest. The maximum level you could get is €416 per month off your mortgage. But if you wait until 2012, the maximum that you can get is €3,000 per person. And at the highest rate, the most you'll get is 75 per month off your mortgage. So that's a difference of €341. So I'm not one to, you know, always come out and say, oh, go buy property. But if you are considering that, you have to factor that into your cost, because that's almost the difference of, you know, €80,000 on a property of a repayment. So when they change the tax relief next year's buyer is going to be significantly less well off than this year's buyer, not because of property prices or mortgage rates, which are their own dynamic separate to this, but simply because of the changes in our tax laws.
Okay, just before we move on, for those who might listen to what you're saying and think, well, you know, I'm going to continue renting, your rent relief is gone too.
Precisely. Unless you have a rent contract signed prior to the 5th of December last year, then rent relief is gone, and in any case it's going to be phased out. So it's the first time in a long time that I've felt this way, but I think if you were to look at buying now, get yourself a long-term fixed rate while the long-term fixed rates are still somewhat affordable, and get yourself onto that TRS gravy train, because that's precisely what it is versus what's going to come after it when they take it away.
Okay, well, there are some places that are stabilising. We're going to talk about that in just a minute. But first, I decided to dip my toe in the market, so I paid a visit to a property in South Dublin that's up on the market as an executor sale. On a gorgeous winter day, I'm here in Dunleary with Jennifer O'Mahony from O'Mahony Auctioneers, and we're talking about executor sales. Now, to those who don't know, what is an executor sale?
An executor sale is simply in a situation where a family member has unfortunately passed away and their family are looking after their estate. In dealing with the estate, then they'll wind up with their assets and sell on a property if that is left for them.
Is this a good way for somebody to get onto the property ladder?
It can be. I think in a lot of cases buyers may think that they might get more of a bargain from a property which is an executor sale than a normal transaction. Generally in an executor's cases they may want to expedite the sale and price the property at an attractive competitive price in order to get it sold quickly.
This property here is subject of an executor sale, so can we go in and have a look?
Absolutely, let's go.
All right, follow you. Wow, it's like stepping into somebody's life, isn't it?
Indeed. There's a lot of contents here and furniture that need to be cleared out, which will happen over the next few weeks or so. But that's part and parcel of executor sales. You'll find that there can be a lot of furniture that still hasn't been cleared out. But what it will do is it will leave a blank canvas for the buyer.
Mm-hmm. How much would, now this is a 3-bedroom bungalow with piles of space on the sides, so people could build on if they could get the planning permission.
Exactly.
What would this sell for?
We're asking 295 on it. We've had a lot of interest so far, and I would expect we'll probably end up a little over 300,000 with it.
Let's take a wander through, because little bits of work I would imagine would have to be done.
Sure.
Okay. Now this is the heart of any house, the kitchen area, and there's several bits and pieces here that yes would need to be modernised, but it is like a step back in time as well. Some great pieces in here.
Sure, it does need modernisation. I expect the first thing a buyer would do would be to replace the original windows there, and replace them with modern double glazing. There is gas central heating there. You can see the boiler just behind you, so you have the kind of basics really. After that, then once all the furniture is cleared out, you've got the bare bones of the house, and it's really up to the buyer then to redecorate and refurbish whichever way they like.
Is it a case of, well, it's up to yourself as regards how much you're going to spend when it comes to refurbishment?
It is. I mean, you can spend any amount that you have, really. I mean, you can go now to the likes of, say, IKEA and get a fitted kitchen for relatively small money, or you can have a custom designed kitchen as well. So, I mean, it depends on your budget. You'll get something, obviously, for pretty much whatever you need.
But this is a great means to start. I mean, it looks like it's a lot of house for very little money.
Exactly. It's great value for young, both first-time buyers and also second-time buyers who, for example, may be in an apartment and they now want to buy a house. Yeah. So it's a nice launching pad for them there.
There's no problem with sunlight either in a place like this.
No, it's great that you've got a dual aspect here and you've got really large windows which are maximising that into the room.
If people want to get on the property ladder and they've been trying for a few years, how do they know about these sales?
Well, again, keep in touch with your local agent, register your interest in a particular type of area that you may be interested in or property, and stay in touch with them on a regular basis. No doubt they will contact you from their own records, but it's always worthwhile making a call every so often to see if there's anything in the pipeline that might be of interest, in order that you can get prepared and have your mortgage approval, if necessary, ready, and then be in a position to move as it may come on stream.
So, Angela, a good example there of a vendor who doesn't have their head in the clouds and is actually giving it the right price.
Absolutely. I think the property which Jennifer showed there is an absolute example of a property that's priced correctly in a good location. As a result, I know that property is attracting a lot of interest because people can see the value, they can see the long-term value. And I just checked it on Friday, and again from talking to the selling agent, I know there's multiple bids on that property at the minute, and it's one of the few examples of we're seeing an asking price of 295, and the last time I checked it was up to 310.
Yeah, like it's just off a main road, but it is well set. You don't feel as if you're on a main road.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I spoke with Jennifer, and as you pointed out while we were looking at that, Karl, when you're looking at a house like that, you are talking about rewiring, replumbing. Jennifer was saying you could probably do it on a budget of in and around 20,000. You might need to stretch it to about 25 before it's in a livable condition.
Well, construction costs, I think, certainly you can get tradesmen at incredible deals at the moment.
Absolutely.
And they will literally be jumping over themselves to quote you for a job, because there is a shortage of that kind of work where you could say to them, go in and do the job, you know, I'll leave you to it, and I'm going to move in then after it. A lot of the things that they're doing are small fixer jobs, fixing burst pipes because of the cold weather, something where they can go in and have, you know, a 2-week, 3-week run at a job and just do it solid and make some decent money at a good price for the customer isn't too common. So you'll find that you'll actually get prices lower than what you might have expected.
It's a lot of house for very little money, and it just needs a bit of modernising.
It needs a bit of modernising, exactly.
OK, let's go around the country. What are some other good examples of things that are selling? Possibly, maybe let's go to Limerick now.
If we went to Limerick, an example in Limerick would be, I spoke to GVM auctioneers, and typical 3-bed semi in Limerick, there's one on the market at the moment in Castletroy. Again, it's a good 3-bed semi. In a good location. It's near Castletroy Golf Club, near the university. That would be on the market for 205,000. It'll probably sell sub 200, but it's a typical example of what's selling in Limerick at the moment.
Okay. Cork as well?
Cork, again, Cork, first-time buyer market. We're seeing a lot of similarities all around the country. What's selling in Cork in the main between 200,000 and 300,000. Again, I spoke to Michael Downey, ERA Downey auctioneers there, and they gave me a couple of examples of nice homes in Carrickline and in Douglas that have actually sold over the last month or so. And again, the price bracket that's selling in Cork would be in the main 200 to 300 grand.
Okay, so these are areas that are kind of like stabilising.
Yeah, I'd say that what we're finding is the market in the main has been fueled by first-time buyers. The Cork, certainly 200 to 300,000 would be the price bracket. Limerick, slightly less than that. You're probably going, you know, 160 to 250. The west of Ireland, again, you know, looking at Westport, spoke to Sherry Fitzcrowley in Westport, and they're seeing a lot of sales around, you know, they have a development there. I think the asking price is 185. They've sold a number of them near enough to the asking price, so slightly less, but you know, talk to any agent around the country, even look around yourself, and anything over the 400,000-500,000 up to now has been very difficult to move. So it'll be very interesting to see how the stamp duty changes impact that market. OK,
Karl, we can't finish today without mentioning this big house in Dalkey that was in the papers at the weekend. It went on the market for 6.25. We have a picture of it there, Fairlawn House. It just sold for 1.4, and you estimate, is that an 80% drop?
It's about almost an 80% drop in price, and that's the kind of liquidation that you see when someone doesn't have to clear a mortgage in order to sell the property. They just want to sell. And I would just say that we can expect probably more of that kind of thing this year, in particular as various developers, their developments are brought to market by either the likes of NAMA or estate agents and receivers. There's actually a very good report out as well by the IAVI and Society of Chartered Surveyors, which is pointing out a lot of the things that Angela had said, that you are seeing a bottom in some areas, or what looks like a bottom, that you've got basically micro markets that are divided down by location and property type. And in fact, banks are even lending on that basis. The property type and the location will determine how much of a loan you can get, and that's a trend that you'll see continuing right through the year.
But still, I think houses around the million still have a way to go, Angela. They still do. The prices are still too inflated. Yeah, I think there's a couple I would watch. There's a house, Lisney put it on the market last week on Griffith Avenue, 181 Griffith Avenue. It was on the market about a year ago, back on the market now for 695, lovely 4-bed, a reduction of 100 grand in the price. Wow. So it'll be very interesting over the next few weeks. Already it's attracting a lot of interest, but it'll be interesting to see, does the price need to fall further before a deal actually closes? There's a lot more people listing properties worth $1 million than there are people with $1 million to buy them, so it's only going to go one direction. Okay, listen, good to talk to you. We'll see you again soon.
Great, thank you.
After the break, we meet the Irish divers from Cork who've made